"Sleep in the shed tonight," they said. I nodded, and by noon tomorrow, every lock was mine. At last the words didn't land with a crash, not at first. They floated in the air between us, as casual as past the salt, and settled into my bones with a quiet, chilling finality. I am Claire. 68 years old, with knuckles that ache when the rain comes and hair I twist into a careful silver bun at the nape of my neck each morning. This house, the one with the slightly crooked porch swing and the climbing rose bush I planted with my late husband, Frank, is mine. The deed, tucked away in a file box under my bed, still bears my name, clear and unequivocal. But possession, I was learning, was a far more complicated matter than a piece of paper. My daughter, Beth, stood with her arms crossed, her chin pointed toward the backyard with the same imperious air she used when directing a delivery driver. "You'll sleep in the shed tonight, Mom. We need the spare room for the baby." She said it as if it were the most logical solution in the world, a simple rearranging of furniture and people. The baby, my first grandchild, was due any day now, and the spare room, my room since they'd moved in 8 months ago, had been slowly transformed into a nursery. First the crib, then the changing table, and just last week, a rocking chair had appeared, displacing my worn armchair and reading lamp. I had been squeezed out incrementally, a slow, polite eviction I hadn't had the courage to name. Her husband, Reed, a man who had mastered the art of looking past me, wouldn't meet my eyes. He was already picking up a thin, scratchy-looking blanket from the arm of the sofa. He walked toward the back door, his shoulders hunched. "I'll get it set up for you," he mumbled, as if this were a kindness, a thoughtful gesture, as if he were preparing a guest suite instead of a glorified closet filled with rusty garden tools and forgotten projects. I watched him go, the screen door slapping shut behind him, and a wave of something cold and heavy washed through me. It wasn't just disappointment. It was the icy shock of recognition, the kind that comes when you finally see the full, unvarnished truth of a situation you've been willfully ignoring for far too long. I followed him out, my feet moving as if through water. The Virginia evening was thick with the scent of honeysuckle and damp earth, a smell that had always meant comfort, home. Tonight, it felt cloying, suffocating. The shed, Frank's old workshop, sagged at the end of the stone path. Reed flicked on the single, bare bulb inside, casting a sickly yellow light over the cluttered space. He set the blanket down on a cracked workbench, pushing aside a collection of terracotta pots and a stiffened paintbrush. The air inside was sour, a layered perfume of spider drafters, old wood, mildew, and motor oil. It was the smell of decay, of things left behind. I stood in the doorway and held my breath against the sting, not just the mustiness, but the sharp, acrid realization that I had been slowly, methodically erased from my own home, from my own life. I had become a convenience. A live-in babysitter in waiting, a supplementary income source, a cook who didn't need to be paid. I had given them the down payment for their car. I had paid the grocery bills when Reed's freelance work dried up for a month. I had let them move into my house, the house Frank and I had filled with laughter and arguments and the smell of baking bread, telling myself it was temporary, that it was what a mother does. You give. You accommodate. You make yourself smaller so your children can have more space. I had made myself so small I was now being asked to disappear into a 10 by 12-foot box of splinters and shadows. "It's just until the baby gets settled," Beth said from behind me, her voice attempting a soothing tone that only amplified the insult. "You understand, right, Mom? It's for the best." I didn't turn around. I couldn't look at her face and see the blithe entitlement I knew would be there. I simply nodded, a short, jerky movement of my head. Understanding was my specialty. I had understood when they needed to borrow my car indefinitely. I had understood when my quiet evenings were overrun with their loud television shows. I had understood, and understood, and understood, until my understanding had hollowed me out completely. Reed brushed past me, his task complete. "There you go. All set." He didn't sound proud of his handiwork, he just sounded finished. They went back inside, leaving me on the stone path as the fireflies began to blink on in the growing dusk. I could hear the television flicker to life through the open kitchen window, followed by the murmur of their voices. My exile had been declared, and they had already moved on. My hands, tucked into the pockets of my old knit cardigan, found the ring of house keys I'd hidden there weeks ago. It had started as a small act of rebellion. Beth had taken my main set, saying it was just easier if she managed them, and had given me a single key to the back door, like a tenant. So I had gone to the hardware store, my hands trembling slightly as I asked the young man to make me a full new set. Holding them in my pocket had become a habit, the cool metal a secret reassurance. A small, cold constellation of defiance in the darkness of my shrinking world. That night, I didn't cry. The hurt was too deep, too old for tears. I lay on the hard workbench, the thin blanket doing little to soften the splintered wood beneath me. Moonlight streamed through the single grimy window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. The shed was not quiet. I could hear the frantic scrabbling of a mouse behind the wall, the hum of mosquitoes just outside the window pane, the distant drone of a late-flight airplane. Each sound was an insult. Each splinter pressing into my back was a reminder. I lay there and counted. I counted the dismissive comments, the forgotten thank yous, the casual appropriations of my space, my money, my time. I counted them like beads on a rosary of resentment, each one a prayer for something I didn't yet have a name for. I thought of Frank, of how he would have roared with indignation. "Claire, you are the queen of this castle," he used to say, kissing my flower-dusted cheek. "Don't ever let anyone make you feel like a guest in your own home." I had let him down. I had let myself down. I had become a ghost in the rooms where we had built a life, a ghost who was now being banished to the unheated outbuilding. Sometime before the sky began to lighten from black to bruised purple, the counting stopped. The anger, a slow-burning ember for months, finally caught flame. It wasn't a wild, consuming fire, but a hot, clean, clarifying blaze. It burned away the fog of obligation and the sticky web of guilt. It burned away the ridiculous notion that my worth was measured by my utility to others. By the time the first birds began their tentative morning songs, the decision had formed, solid and clear in my mind, as if it had been forged in the cold fire of that long, sleepless night. I would not be sleeping in the shed again. I waited. I lay on my wooden plank bed and listened to the sounds of the house waking up. The shower running, the clink of coffee cups, the front door opening and closing as they left for work, their cars pulling out of the driveway. They didn't check on me. They didn't call out a goodbye. Of course they didn't. The woman in the shed was a problem solved, an obstacle removed. She required no further thought. At 9 o'clock, I let myself into the house through the back door with my single, permitted key. The air was stale with the lingering smell of their breakfast. A dirty plate sat on the counter, a smear of dried egg yolk on its surface. I washed it, dried it, and put it away. It was the last thing I would clean up after them. At 10:30, I made the call. My voice was steady. "Yes, I'd like to schedule a locksmith. As soon as possible, please." By noon, a large white van with Miller & Sons secure locking emblazoned on the side was backing into my driveway. It didn't look like a commercial vehicle. To me, it looked like a rescue boat, a chariot, an ark arriving just as the floodwaters were reaching my chin. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. A young man with kind eyes and a reassuringly professional demeanor came to the door. I let him in, and as he began to methodically dismantle the old locks, the ones my daughter now controlled, a strange sense of peace settled over me. Each turn of his screwdriver was a note in a symphony of liberation. This was not an act of vengeance. It was an act of survival. I was not locking them out. I was finally, after all these years, locking myself in. And I knew, with a certainty that hummed in my veins, that when they came home and their keys no longer worked, the life I had known would be over. But a new one, a life that was entirely my own, was just beginning. The real question was, would I have the strength to see it through when the storm broke? The final lock clicked into place with a sound of profound finality, a crisp, metallic syllable that spoke of endings and beginnings. The locksmith, a young man named Kevin with tattoos peeking from under the sleeve of his work shirt, handed me a set of 3 new brass keys. They were heavy and cool in my palm, their sharp, clean edges feeling wonderfully unfamiliar. They were not copies of old keys, they were entirely new, a tangible symbol of the line I had just drawn. "All set, ma'am," he said, giving me a friendly, uncomplicated smile. "You're all secure now." Secure. The word echoed in the sudden quiet of the hallway. I paid him, my hands steady as I counted out the bills, and walked him to the door. I watched his van pull out of the driveway and disappear down the street, taking the last vestiges of my old life with it. Then I turned, placed one of the new keys into the new lock on my own front door, and closed it. The bolt slid home with a soft, satisfying thud that felt louder than any argument, more powerful than any shout I had ever suppressed. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, the door to my home was truly, unequivocally closed. I leaned my back against the solid wood, the coolness of the varnish seeping through my cardigan, and I breathed. It felt like the first real breath I had taken in months. The air inside the house tasted different, cleaner, lighter. It was my air again. For so long, the atmosphere had been thick with unspoken tensions, with Beth's passive-aggressive sighs, with Reed's sullen silences, with the cloying sense of my own obsolescence. Now, the house seemed to breathe with me, a slow, peaceful exhalation of relief. My gaze drifted through the living room, and I saw it not as a shared space, a battleground of conflicting needs, but as my space. My mother's blue and white striped mixing bowl, the one she'd used to make my birthday cakes every year, sat on the kitchen counter. Beth had been using it to hold spare pacifiers and baby wipes, a casual desecration that had felt like a tiny splinter in my heart every time I saw it. I walked over, emptied the plastic baby paraphernalia onto the counter, and carried the bowl to the sink. I washed it carefully with warm, soapy water, my fingers tracing the familiar painted stripes. I dried it with a soft cloth and placed it in the center of the kitchen table, a silent declaration of reclaimed history. On the couch, the quilt I had painstakingly sewn during my recovery from chemotherapy lay folded, but not in the neat square I always used. It was rumpled, thrown aside, likely used by Reed as a footrest while he watched television. I picked it up, smoothing the wrinkles from the fabric. Each patch told a story, a piece of Frank's old flannel shirt, a scrap from the dress Beth wore to her kindergarten graduation, a floral print from my own mother's apron. It was a tapestry of my life, of my love. I folded it with reverence and laid it neatly over the back of my reading chair, the one that had been temporarily exiled to the corner of the dining room. I moved the chair back to its rightful place beside the window, next to the small table that held my books and my reading glasses. The room already felt more like itself, more like me. I decided to make tea. It felt like a ceremony. I filled the kettle with fresh, cold water and set it on the stove. While I waited for it to boil, I walked through the quiet rooms. I went into the spare room, now a fully fledged nursery. The scent of fresh paint and new plastic hung in the air. A mobile of smiling cartoon giraffes dangled over the crib. It was a room full of anticipation, but none of it was mine. It felt sterile, alien. I backed out and closed the door, not with anger, but with a sense of detachment. It was their dream, their space. And it was no longer my bedroom. The kettle began to sing, a high, piercing whistle that seemed to slice through the years of silence I had imposed upon myself. I poured the boiling water over a peppermint tea bag in my favorite mug, the one with the slightly chipped rim that Frank had always teased me about. I carried it to my reading chair and sat down, cradling the warm ceramic in my hands. And then, the shaking started. It began in my fingers and spread up my arms, a violent, uncontrollable tremor. It wasn't from fear or cold. It was the physical manifestation of a lifetime of suppressed rebellion finally breaking free. It was the aftershock of the earthquake that had just rearranged the landscape of my life. I was not a reckless woman. I had never been impulsive. I was a planner, a list maker, a saver of string and rubber bands. I was the one who remembered birthdays, who paid the bills on time, who always had a spare bandage in her purse. This act, changing the locks on my own daughter, was so far outside the known boundaries of my character that it felt as if a stranger had inhabited my body. But as I sat there, watching the steam rise from my tea, I knew this was no stranger. This was me. The me that had been buried under decades of being a wife, a mother, a caregiver, a people-pleaser. This was the me who, at 68 years old, was finally, desperately, reclaiming oxygen. The house was silent, but my mind was a cacophony. I imagined the scene that would unfold in a few hours. Beth's car pulling into the driveway. The sound of her keys scraping uselessly against the new lock. The confusion, turning to irritation, then to outright fury. Reed, his face darkening, kicking at the door perhaps. The inevitable barrage of phone calls and text messages. My stomach clenched at the thought of the confrontation, the accusations, the emotional artillery that would be aimed directly at me. How could you? After all we've done for you? You're throwing out your own family. You're abandoning your grandchild. I had played these imaginary arguments in my head 1,000 times, and in every previous version, I had buckled. I had apologized, smoothed things over, offered a concession. I had always been the one to absorb the anger, to keep the peace at my own expense. Peace. What a hollow word it had become. My life hadn't been peaceful. It had been a state of low-grade, constant warfare, a battle of attrition for my own soul. And I had been losing. I took a sip of tea. The peppermint was sharp and clean, clearing my head. I looked at the quilt, at the blue bowl, at the familiar titles of the books on my small table. These things were my history. This house was my sanctuary. I had not thrown them out. I had simply closed the door to the people who believed they had the right to occupy my sanctuary without invitation, to rewrite my history without my consent. The shaking in my hands began to subside, replaced by a quiet, humming strength. I had spent the night in a shed, a place of storage for things deemed no longer useful. I had been put on a shelf. But I was not a rusty garden rake or a broken clay pot. I was a woman. I was a homeowner. I was a person who deserved a bed to sleep in and a door she could lock. The sun streamed through the window, illuminating the dust motes I hadn't had the energy to wipe away for weeks. They danced in the golden light, no longer signs of neglect, but tiny, glittering particles of a life in suspension, waiting for the wind of change to stir them. I finished my tea and stood up. I had a few hours of peace before the storm hit. I decided I would spend them wisely. I would walk through every room of my house, not as a caretaker or a maid, but as its rightful owner. I would reacquaint myself with the woman who lived here. I felt a tremor of fear, a flicker of the old, familiar doubt. Could I really do this? Could I withstand the onslaught that was sure to come? I walked to the front door and placed my hand on the new, sturdy deadbolt. It was cool and solid beneath my fingers. It was only a small piece of metal, but it felt like a spine. And as evening approached, I knew I would need all the strength it could give me, because the silence was about to be broken, and I had no idea if the foundations of this old house, or the woman inside it, were strong enough to withstand the hurricane that was coming. The first assault didn't come with a knock on the door, but with a digital chime. My phone, sitting on the kitchen counter where I'd left it, lit up with a text message from Beth. The screen glowed with a single, accusing question, "What did you do?" I stared at it, my heart beginning to beat a little faster. I could picture the scene perfectly, Beth standing on the porch, her key refusing to turn, her face a mask of disbelief. Reed beside her, his initial confusion already hardening into anger. The question wasn't really a question, it was an indictment. Before I could even think of how to respond, or if I should respond at all, the phone buzzed again. And again. It began to erupt, a relentless digital storm breaking the quiet peace I had so carefully cultivated all afternoon. "Beth, the key isn't working." "Beth, Mom, answer your phone." "Beth, this isn't funny. We have groceries." "Beth, how could you?" The capital letters seemed to scream from the small screen. Then came Reed. His messages were shorter, more menacing. "Reed, open the door. Now. Read, what is wrong with you? Read, this is illegal. You can't just lock us out. Illegal. The word made me flinch. For a moment, the old panic flared. Had I done something wrong? Was I the villain in this story? I took a deep breath, picturing the deed in its box under my bed, my name printed in clear, legal type. This was my house. The panic subsided, replaced by a slow, simmering anger of my own. For 8 months, they had treated me like an employee. Now, the moment their convenience was threatened, they invoked the law. I didn't reply. I simply watched the messages pile up, a toxic landslide of entitlement and rage. Then, a new name appeared on the screen, my niece, Lynn, Beth's cousin. Lynn, Beth just called me, crying. What on earth is going on, Aunt Claire? She said you locked her out of her home. Her home. The casual assumption stung more than the angry texts. To the rest of the family, the narrative had already been set. I was the unstable, cruel old woman who had capriciously tossed her pregnant daughter and son-in-law out onto the street. The context, the months of being marginalized, the night in the shed, none of it would matter. Then came the final, dismissive blow. A message from Lynn, containing nothing but a single, red thumbs down emoji. It was so juvenile, so simplistic in its judgment, that it was almost comical. I, a 68-year-old woman, had just been given a thumbs down. My entire life, my home, my decision, reduced to a cartoon gesture of disapproval. I silenced the phone and set it face down on the counter, but I couldn't silence the memories the messages had churned up. My mind became a projection screen, flashing images from the past year, the ghosted years where my own needs had become invisible. I saw myself sitting in my car in the parking lot of the pediatric urgent care at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night, waiting for Beth to come out with her then toddler, Leo. She had called me in a panic, a fever, a cough, and I had driven across town without a second thought, canceling my own book club meeting. When she finally emerged, an hour later, the crisis averted, she hadn't said thank you. She had simply handed Leo to me and said, he's exhausted. Can you get him home? I need to pick up a prescription. I had driven my grandson home, given him his medicine, and put him to bed while Beth and Reed went out for a late dinner to de-stress. I saw myself at the bank, my stomach in knots, co-signing the loan for Reed's new SUV. It's just a formality, Mom, Beth had assured me. His freelance income is too variable for them. We'll make every payment. 3 months later, I had received a delinquency notice in the mail. They had forgotten I had paid the overdue amount and the late fees myself, a significant chunk of my fixed income, to protect my own credit score. They had repaid me with the casual, "Oh, thanks, Mom, you're a lifesaver," as if I had merely spotted them for a cup of coffee. The screen in my mind kept playing. There I was, on my hands and knees, scrubbing a grape juice stain out of the carpet after one of their parties. There I was, waking at dawn to let in the plumber they had scheduled without telling me, then waiting 4 hours for him to show up. There I was, handing over $100 bill for groceries, then seeing a new, expensive video game console appear under the television the next day. Each memory was a small cut, a minor wound that I had bandaged with excuses and rationalizations. They're young. They're stressed. They're starting a family. They don't mean it. But looking back now, through the clarifying lens of the locked door, I saw the truth. It wasn't a series of isolated incidents. It was a pattern. A system of exploitation that I had not only allowed, but enabled. The betrayal was not the single act of being sent to the shed. That was merely the final, clumsy brick laid on a foundation of disrespect that had been under construction for years. The real betrayal was a slow, creeping sediment of small takings, of assumed privileges, of unacknowledged sacrifices. It was the quiet assumption that my time had no value, that my money had no purpose other than to fill their gaps, that my home was not a home but a resource center. It was 1,000 tiny transactions that had hardened over time into an unspoken family rule: Claire doesn't need. Claire is fine. Claire will manage. The phone started ringing, a shrill, insistent demand. Beth's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the green accept button. The old Claire, the accommodating Claire, would have answered. She would have absorbed the rage, offered excuses, tried to find a compromise that would, inevitably, require her to sacrifice another piece of herself. But the woman who had spent the night with splinters in her back was not the old Claire. That woman was gone. I pressed the red button, silencing the call. I did it again when she immediately called back. And a third time. Then I turned the phone off completely. The silence that descended was absolute. It was terrifying. And it was liberating. I had spent my entire adult life as a responder. A responder to scraped knees, to hungry mouths, to broken hearts, to financial crises. My life had been a series of reactions to the needs of others. By turning off the phone, I was breaking that circuit. For the first time, I was refusing to respond. I was choosing the quiet of my own home over the noise of their demands. I knew this was only a temporary reprieve. They were outside. They were angry. This would escalate. They would knock, they would shout, they might even call the police. The thought sent a jolt of anxiety through me. What would I do? What would I say? I had no plan, no script. All I had was the solid feel of the floor beneath my feet and the unshakable knowledge that I could not, would not, sleep in that shed again. The ghosted years were over. I was no longer an invisible presence in my own house. I was here. I was solid. And if they wanted to talk to me, they would have to acknowledge that. They would have to come to my door, a door that was now closed to them, and treat me not as a resource, but as the owner. The thought was so radical, so completely foreign, that I had to sit down. This wasn't just about changing locks, it was about changing the entire power dynamic of my family. I had no allies, no one on my side. Or did I? A new thought began to dawn. Perhaps I wasn't as alone as I felt. Perhaps there were people who would understand. But finding them would mean reaching out, and that felt almost as scary as the confrontation that was brewing on my front porch. The silence stretched, thick and heavy with anticipation. I knew it was the calm before the inevitable storm, a pause while Beth and Reed regrouped and decided on their next move. I used the time not to panic, but to think. The accusations in their text messages, particularly Reed's threat of illegal action, had unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. I had acted on pure, gut-level instinct, a primal need for self-preservation. But was instinct enough? I was a woman who believed in rules, in doing things the right way. I needed to know if the ground I was standing on was as solid legally as it felt emotionally. My mind immediately went to Jean. Jean Peterson, my neighbor from 2 houses down. A widow like me, she had moved to the neighborhood about 5 years ago after a long career in human resources for a large corporation. She was sharp, no nonsense, and possessed a quiet confidence I'd always admired. We weren't close friends, we mostly waved while gardening or chatted over the fence about the weather, but I sensed a core of steel in her. Jean knew about policies, about procedures, about boundaries. She knew how to be firm without being cruel. She was exactly who I needed. My hand trembled as I picked up my landline phone, a relic I kept for emergencies, which this most certainly was, and dialed her number. It felt like a monumental act, admitting to someone else that my carefully curated family life was a sham, that my home was a place of conflict. Jean Peterson speaking, she answered, her voice as crisp as a starched shirt. Jean, it's Claire Thompson. From down the street. Claire. How lovely to hear from you. Is everything all right? You sound a little strained. The dam broke. The words came tumbling out, a torrent of humiliation and resolve. I told her everything. The move-in, the slow takeover of my space, the financial drains, and finally, the shed. I told her about the locksmith and the furious text messages now sitting on my powered-off cell phone. I expected judgment, or perhaps pity. I got neither. Jean was silent for a long moment after I finished, and I held my breath, fearing I had made a mistake. Then she said, in a voice laced with a kind of weary empathy, "Oh, Claire. I'm so sorry you went through that. But I'm not surprised you're not, honey. My 30 years in HR taught me one thing: people will take whatever you are willing to give them, and then they'll take a little more. Family can sometimes be the worst offenders because they feel entitled to it. What you did wasn't vindictive. It was a necessary course correction. Course correction. The term was so beautifully corporate, so devoid of the messy emotions churning inside me. It made my actions feel rational, strategic. It gave them weight. But Reed said it was illegal, I whispered, the fear creeping back into my voice. Reed can say whatever he likes, Jean scoffed. Is your name the only one on the deed to the house? Yes. Have they been paying you rent, or contributing to the mortgage or utilities under any kind of formal agreement? No. I mean, they buy some groceries. Reed mowed the lawn once last month. That's not a tenancy agreement, Claire. That's a child living at home. Morally, it's a gray area. Legally, you are well within your rights to determine who has access to your property. You didn't evict them with 30 days' notice because they aren't tenants. They are guests whose invitation has expired. Her certainty was a bomb. I felt my shoulders, which had been up around my ears, relax an inch. So, what now? I asked, my voice small. Now, Jean said, her tone shifting into practical HR mode, you formalize it. You can't let this play out in a shouting match on the lawn. You need to communicate your new terms clearly, calmly, and in writing. It protects you, and it shows them you are serious. An hour later, Jean was sitting at my kitchen table. She had come over with a reassuring smile and a lemon pound cake. As we ate slices of the sweet, dense cake and drank tea, she helped me draft a note. It was a masterpiece of clarity and firmness, tempered with a tone of regretful necessity. It established the new reality. It wasn't a letter of eviction, it was a proposal for a new way forward. It stated that I loved them, but that the current living situation was no longer sustainable for me. It outlined two possible paths. Path A, they could choose to find another place to live, and I would give them a reasonable time frame. I suggested 60 days, to do so, during which they could have scheduled access to the house to pack their belongings. Path B, if they wished to stay, it would be under a formal rental agreement. We would have to agree on a monthly rent payment, a fair market rate for 2 rooms, and a clear division of utility bills. It also stipulated a list of house rules regarding chores, noise levels, and shared spaces. It ended by stating that I was ready to discuss either option with them, but the discussion would have to be calm and respectful, and it would happen by appointment. As I wrote the words down on a clean sheet of paper, my own handwriting looking strange and powerful, I felt a spine forming where before there had been only a soft, pliable cushion. This paper, this pen, they were my tools. They were building a barricade of boundaries around my well-being. After Jean left, her pound cake a comforting presence on my counter, I felt a surge of empowerment. I went to the closet in the hallway and pulled down a large file box from the top shelf. It was dusty, and I sneezed as I set it on the floor. It was my important papers box, a collection of documents that traced the entire arc of my adult life. I sifted through the contents, my fingers brushing against history. There was my marriage certificate, Frank's death certificate, my birth certificate. There were old tax returns, car titles, my parents' wills. And there, at the bottom, was the deed to the house, the original document from when Frank and I had bought it 45 years ago. Our names were typed side by side, Frank J. Thompson and Claire M. Thompson. I ran my thumb over my name. Claire M. Thompson. It looked solid, permanent. Beneath the deed was a newer file. It contained receipts for the new roof I'd put on 3 years ago, the furnace I'd replaced last winter, the property tax statements I paid every year. It was a ledger of my sole ownership, my responsibility. I had shouldered this house alone since Frank died, and I had done it well. Tucked into a side pocket of the folder was another document, one I had forgotten about. It was a durable power of attorney form that Beth had asked me to sign about a year ago. Just in case, Mom, she'd said sweetly. If you ever get sick or can't manage your own affairs, this will let me step in and help with your finances. pay your bills for you. At the time, it had seemed like a sensible, caring suggestion. I had taken the form, told her I'd look it over, and then, for some reason I couldn't articulate, I had never signed it. A small, stubborn part of me had resisted giving up that control. Looking at the blank signature line now, I felt a profound wave of relief. It was a door I had left unopened, a final bastion of my autonomy that they had not yet breached. My name on the deed, on the receipts, on the tax bills. The blank space on the power of attorney form. Together, they told a story. They were proof that I was not independent. I was not a child to be managed. I was the owner, the sole proprietor of this house and this life. The paper and the pen had not created my spine, they had simply helped me find the one that was there all along, buried under layers of misplaced duty and guilt. I folded the note I had written with Jean's help and slipped it into an envelope. On the front, I wrote 2 words, Beth and Reed. I would not scream through the door. I would not engage in a text message war. I would use the mail slot. I would communicate like the adult I was. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Soon, they would be back. Or they would escalate. I didn't know what the evening would bring, but for the first time in years, my name on paper didn't just feel like a fact. It felt like a door that opened inward, to a room that was entirely my own. And I was finally ready to step inside. The pounding on the door began just as dusk was settling into a deep, velvety darkness. It wasn't a polite knock, it was a series of hard, angry thuds that vibrated through the floorboards. It was the sound of entitlement denied. My heart leaped into my throat, a frightened bird beating against the cage of my ribs. This was it. The confrontation I had been dreading and preparing for all day. Mom. Open this door right now. I know you're in there. Beth's voice was sharp and ragged with fury, stripped of all its usual pretense of gentle concern. I walked slowly from the kitchen to the front hall, my slippers whispering against the hardwood floor. I flicked on the porch light. Through the peephole, I could see them, distorted and monstrous. Beth's face was red and blotchy, her hair escaping from its usually neat ponytail. Reed stood just behind her, his phone held up, its camera lens a single, judgmental eye pointing at my door. He was filming. The calculated cruelty of it sent a fresh wave of ice through my veins. This wasn't just an argument, it was an evidence-gathering expedition for the court of family opinion. They weren't just trying to get back in, they were trying to build a case against me. What is your problem? Beth shouted, her voice cracking. You've lost your mind. You're throwing out your pregnant daughter. Her words were designed for an audience, for the neighbors whose lights were now probably flicking on, for the video Reed was recording. They were a performance of victimhood. I took a deep, steadying breath, my hand resting on the cool metal of the new deadbolt. I remembered Jean's advice, stay calm. Don't engage in a shouting match. I thought of the note I had written, the clear, rational terms it laid out. That was my anchor. You're abandoning your grandchild, Beth cried, her voice rising to a theatrical wail. Your own flesh and blood. You're going to be all alone, and it will be your own fault. The words were poisoned darts, each one dipped in a venom brewed specifically for me, targeting my deepest fears, being a bad mother, being selfish, being alone. For a moment, they found their mark. A tremor of guilt, as familiar as my own heartbeat, shook me. Was I being cruel? Was I abandoning them? Then I heard the echo of a different set of words, an internal whisper that was finally loud enough to be heard over the shouting. You are a wallet with hands. You are a convenience. You are the woman who sleeps in the shed. That whisper gave me strength. With a hand that was surprisingly steady, I unbolted the deadbolt but left the security chain firmly in place. I opened the door the few inches the chain would allow. It was a compromise, a small opening that was not a surrender. They both fell silent, surprised by the door opening. I could see them more clearly now in the yellow glow of the porch light. Beth's face was wet with tears, but her eyes were hard with anger, not soft with sorrow. Reed lowered his phone slightly, a scowl etched on his face. We can talk, I said, my voice quiet but firm. It didn't waver. I was surprised by how calm I sounded. But we will not shout. And you can put the camera away, Reed. This is a family matter, not a documentary. Reed looked taken aback, then his scowl deepened. He kept the phone up. We want to know why we're locked out of our house. This is my house, Reed, I said, the words tasting strange and powerful on my tongue. I had never said them before. You have been living here as my guests. The terms of that arrangement have changed. Changed? You changed them without even talking to us. Beth's voice was thick with disbelief. You just throw us out on the street? Me, in my condition? She placed a protective hand on her swollen belly, a gesture that was both instinctual and deeply manipulative. I did not throw you out, I said, keeping my voice level. I secured my own home. I have spent the day thinking, and I have written down some new terms for how we can move forward. You have options. But the old way, the way things were, is over. I held up the envelope containing the letter I had written. This is for you. It explains everything. You can take it, read it, and we can schedule a time to talk about it tomorrow, when we are all calmer. Beth stared at the envelope as if it were a snake. You're giving us a letter? Like a landlord? You're my mother. Yes, I am, I said, and for the first time, I let a sliver of the deep hurt I felt edge my voice. I am your mother. And last night, you told your mother to sleep in a shed full of spiders and mildew because you needed her room for a changing table. So yes, things have to change. The mention of the shed seemed to momentarily deflate her. A flicker of something, shame, perhaps, crossed her face before it was quickly replaced by defensiveness. It was temporary. We were going to clean it out. You're being so dramatic. No, I said softly. I'm being done. I'm done being dramatic. I'm done being a pushover. I'm done setting myself on fire to keep you warm. I pushed the envelope through the gap in the door. It fell onto the porch at her feet. Read it, I said. Call me tomorrow to set up a time to talk. I am not going to argue with you on my doorstep. Reed raised his phone again, pointing it directly at my face in the narrow opening. This is unbelievable. She's completely lost it. The chain was a thin piece of brass, a few inches of metal holding back a tidal wave of anger. But it held. And as I looked at them, my daughter, her face contorted in a mask of rage, my son-in-law, hiding behind the lens of his phone, I felt a profound and painful shift inside me. The chain wasn't just holding them back. It was holding me in. It was protecting the woman who was finally learning to say no. I looked directly at Beth, past the tears and the anger, searching for the little girl I had raised. I couldn't find her. In her place was a stranger, someone who looked at me not with love, but with the fury of a usurper whose claim has been denied. The chain holds, I said, as much to myself as to them. And so do I. With that, I gently closed the door, shutting out their shocked faces. I slid the deadbolt back into place. The pounding started again, harder this time, accompanied by Reed's angry shouts. I walked away from the door, my legs feeling shaky but strong. I did not go to the window. I did not listen. I went into the living room, sat in my reading chair, and picked up a book. I couldn't focus on the words, but holding it was a comfort. The shouting outside continued for a long time, a desperate, furious storm. But inside my house, I was the calm at its center. I knew the battle wasn't over. In fact, it had just begun. But tonight, for the first time, I hadn't just closed a door on them, I had opened one for myself. The shouting eventually subsided, replaced by the angry slam of car doors and the squeal of tires as they peeled out of the driveway. The silence that rushed in to fill the void was immense, almost ringing in my ears. The adrenaline that had sustained me through the confrontation drained away, leaving me feeling hollowed out and trembling. I sat in my reading chair for a long time, the unread book heavy in my lap, and simply stared into the middle distance. I had held the line. I had not buckled. But the victory, if it could be called that, felt bitter and deeply lonely. That evening, I couldn't bring myself to eat. I made tea, but my stomach was a tight knot of anxiety. I kept replaying the scene at the door, Beth's furious, tear-streaked face, Reed's accusatory camera lens. Had I done the right thing? The question echoed in the empty rooms. Every instinct, every fiber of my being that had been conditioned for a lifetime to nurture, to soothe, to sacrifice, was screaming that I had made a terrible, monstrous mistake. Unable to settle, I found myself wandering toward the back of the house, to the window that looked out over the yard. The moon was high and bright, casting long, skeletal shadows from the oak trees. And there, at the end of the stone path, was the shed. It looked smaller, somehow, less menacing in the soft moonlight. It was just a tired, old building, a place for forgotten things. A place they had designated for me. I pulled on my cardigan, slipped my feet into my gardening clogs, and let myself out the back door. The night air was cool and smelled of damp grass. I walked slowly down the path, my steps almost tentative, as if approaching the scene of a crime. When I reached the shed, I didn't go in. I just stood before its closed door, my arms wrapped around myself. This was the place. The place where the final splinter of my self-respect had been driven in. This was the scene of my humiliation. I stared at its peeling paint and the rusty latch, and I felt a wave of shame so profound it almost buckled my knees. It wasn't the shame of my actions today, it was the shame of my inaction for years. The shame of how I had allowed myself to be treated, how I had kept saying yes, kept absorbing the disrespect, all in a desperate, misguided attempt to stay loved, to be needed, to not be alone. I had been so afraid of losing them that I had lost myself instead. Rough night. The voice, coming from the darkness just over the fence, made me jump. I spun around, my heart pounding. May, from the garden club, was standing in her own backyard, a watering can in her hand. She was a tiny, bird-like woman with a cloud of white hair and the kindest eyes I had ever seen. "Oh, May. You startled me," I said, my voice thin. "Sorry, dear. Couldn't help but hear the commotion earlier," she said gently, with no hint of nosiness, only concern. "Saw the lights were on. Thought you might need a friendly face." I don't know why, but her simple kindness was my undoing. The tears I hadn't shed in the shed, the tears I had held back at the door, suddenly came. I pressed my hand to my mouth to stifle a sob, but it was no use. The grief and fear and shame of it all came pouring out of me in a ragged, silent flood. May didn't say a word. She just set down her watering can, walked to the gate that separated our yards, unlatched it, and came to stand beside me. She put a small, warm hand on my arm and just stood with me in the moonlight, a silent, steady presence, until the worst of the storm had passed. When I could finally speak, the whole story came out, just as it had with Jean, but this time it was laced with the raw emotion of the evening. I confessed my deepest shame to her, right there in front of the little building that had become its symbol. "I kept saying yes," I whispered, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand. "I thought if I was helpful enough, useful enough, they would love me. I thought that was the price of admission to my own family." May squeezed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. She looked from me to the shed and back again. Then she said the words that would rearrange my entire understanding of love. "Oh, Claire," she said, her voice soft but clear as a bell. "Love without respect is just starvation. You've been starving for years." Starvation. The word landed with the force of a physical blow. It was the perfect word. I had been starving for dignity, for acknowledgement, for the simple respect of being treated as a person with her own needs and her own life. I had been trying to nourish myself on the empty calories of obligation, and it had left me dangerously depleted. We stood in silence for another moment, the weight of her words settling over us. Then May's eyes lit up with an idea. "This place," she said, gesturing to the shed. "It's been a prison cell for you. Let's change that. Right now." "What do you mean?" "I mean let's turn it into something else," she said, her energy suddenly infectious. "It's your space. It should be a place of healing, not humiliation. Wait right here." She bustled back to her house and returned a few minutes later with a tangled string of solar-powered fairy lights, the kind people hang on their patios. "I've had these lying around forever. Let's give them a purpose. And so, in the middle of the night, by the light of the moon, May and I set to work. We untangled the lights, our heads bent close together. I stood on a wobbly stepping stool while May directed me, and we strung the tiny, twinkling lights all along the eaves of the shed. When we were done, May flicked the little switch. 100 tiny stars bloomed to life, casting a warm, magical glow over the little building. They twinkled against the weathered wood, transforming the symbol of my lowest moment into something beautiful, something whimsical. The shed no longer looked like a place of punishment. It looked like a tiny sanctuary, a fairy house at the bottom of the garden. We stood back, admiring our work. The fairy lights didn't erase what had happened, but they reframed it. They were evidence that a space, and a person, could be reclaimed. They were a testament to the fact that healing can begin when you choose to bring your own light into the darkest places. There, May said with satisfaction. It's not a cell anymore. It's a witness. It's a reminder that you chose to step out of the darkness and into the light. I looked at my neighbor, this woman I had barely known, who had shown me more genuine kindness and understanding in the last hour than I had received from my own daughter in years. "Thank you, May," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," she said, patting my arm. "Just remember, you're not as alone as you feel. There's a whole world of us out here, the women who have been helpful all our lives. We just have to learn to start being helpful to ourselves." As I went back inside my quiet, locked house, I glanced back at the shed. Its tiny lights twinkled back at me like a secret promise. It was still the place where I had been sent to be forgotten. But now, it was also the place where I had been found. It was a witness, not just to my pain, but to the beginning of my strength. And I knew that whatever happened next, I would not be facing it in the dark. The next morning, I woke with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in years, the twinkling lights of the shed still etched in my mind. The conversation with May had been a turning point, a powerful affirmation that I wasn't crazy or cruel. I was, as Jean had put it, making a course correction. Bolstered by the support of these two women, I knew my next step had to be a practical one. Emotions and symbols were powerful, but I needed to ensure my position was legally sound. I needed professional advice. I remembered seeing a flyer at the public library for a free legal aid clinic for seniors, run by volunteer lawyers. I found the number online and called, my voice betraying a slight tremor of nervousness. I was given an appointment for that very afternoon. It felt like another sign that I was on the right path. The clinic was housed in the basement of a community center, a cheerful, slightly chaotic space that smelled of stale coffee and earnest intentions. The waiting area was filled with people who looked like me, older, their faces etched with worry, clutching folders of papers to their chests. We were all here seeking clarity, seeking a champion in a world that often felt bewilderingly complex. I was called into a small, partitioned-off cubicle where a woman with a calm, steady gaze and a neat gray bob sat waiting for me. "Hello, Claire," she said, extending a hand. "I'm Anne. I'm a retired corporate lawyer. Let's see what we can figure out." Her demeanor was instantly reassuring, all business, but with an undercurrent of kindness. I took out the file box I'd brought from home, the one I had gone through 2 nights before. I laid it all out for her on the small desk. The deed to the house, the recent property tax bills, the unpaid utility notices that were addressed to me but covered their usage, and the unsigned power of attorney form. I told her the entire story, from the day they moved in to the moment I'd closed the chain door. Anne listened patiently, nodding occasionally, her eyes scanning the documents as I spoke. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she steepled her fingers and looked at me over the top of her reading glasses. "Well, Claire," she said, her voice as steady as a metronome. "From a legal standpoint, your position is quite strong. This is your property. Your daughter and her husband are not tenants in the legal sense, they are guests. You have every right to revoke their invitation to stay in your home." Relief washed over me so intensely I felt lightheaded. "So I haven't done anything illegal?" "No," she said firmly. "You have not. You have asserted your rights as a property owner. In fact, by taking these steps, you are protecting yourself. That unsigned power of attorney form is particularly telling. It seems you had an intuitive sense that you needed to maintain control of your own affairs. She then reviewed the note I had written with Jean's help. She read it through twice, a small, approving smile playing on her lips. "This is excellent," she said. "It's clear, it's non-emotional, and it offers them reasonable options. It demonstrates that you are not acting out of malice, but out of a need to establish firm, healthy boundaries." Boundaries. It was the same word Jean had used. Hearing it from a lawyer gave it a new kind of power, a legal weight. "So what do I do now?" I asked. "They took the letter, but they haven't contacted me." "Now," Anne said, tapping a pen on the draft, "we make this official. We will redraft this as a formal tenancy offer. It will be typed, professional, and it will lay out the terms in no uncertain language. It will give them a clear choice, either accept the terms of a lease and become paying tenants, or vacate the property by a specified date." For the next hour, Anne and I worked together, drafting the document. We specified a fair market rent for the rooms they occupied, basing it on local rental listings. We calculated their share of the average monthly utilities. We outlined a list of responsibilities, contribution to household chores, rules about overnight guests, maintaining the cleanliness of common areas, and we set a firm deadline. They had 7 days to respond to the offer in writing. If they agreed, we would sign a formal month-to-month lease. If they refused, or if we did not hear from them, they would be required to vacate the premises within 60 days. As we worked, something inside me shifted. This was no longer just about my hurt feelings or their disrespect. This was a transaction. It was about the value of my home, the cost of its upkeep, the rules of cohabitation. It was about transforming a vague, emotionally fraught arrangement into a clear, business-like contract. It was about taking the messy, tangled threads of love and obligation and weaving them into a rope of self-respect. My heartbeat, which had been a frantic, anxious rhythm for the past 48 hours, began to learn a slower, steadier cadence. Anne's calm professionalism was a tonic. She wasn't a friend offering sympathy, she was an expert offering a strategy. She was giving me the tools not just to win a fight, but to build a lasting peace on my own terms. "This document is not a punishment," she said as she printed out the final version. "It is a boundary. It's a clear line that says, this is my property, and these are the terms under which I am willing to share it. Whether they accept it or not is their choice. But you have now clearly and legally defined the situation. The ball is in their court." I left the legal clinic clutching a folder containing 2 copies of the official offer, one for them, one for my records. The papers felt heavy in my hands, imbued with the authority of the law and the quiet strength of the woman who had helped me create them. I was no longer just an emotional, overwhelmed mother. I was a property owner with a legal document and a clear path forward. That evening, I sent the document to Beth and Reed via certified mail, requiring a signature upon receipt. It was a small, additional expense, but it was an important one. It was proof of delivery. It was another step in doing things the right, official way. There would be no more shouting matches on the porch. The debate had moved from the realm of emotion to the realm of paper and ink. I knew the storm was far from over. This document would likely be received as an act of war. But I felt a new kind of peace. I had sought help. I had armed myself with knowledge. I had replaced my fear with a plan. I still didn't know if they would choose to leave or choose to stay under my new terms. But I did know that I had survived the initial hurricane, and I was now standing on much firmer ground, ready for whatever came next. The slow, steady rhythm of my own heart was the only answer I needed. The certified letter was delivered the next day. I know this because I received a delivery confirmation email with a digitized version of Beth's angry, jagged signature. Then, silence. For 3 agonizing days, I heard nothing. The quiet in the house was a living thing, expanding and contracting with my anxiety. Every time a car drove down the street, I would jump, expecting them to appear in the driveway. I checked my phone constantly, even though I knew a text or a call was unlikely. The formal letter demanded a formal response, and they were taking their time, letting me steep in the uncertainty. On the fourth day, the storm broke again, but not in the way I had expected. There was no knock on the door, no phone call. I was in the kitchen, washing the lunch dishes, when I heard the sound of the back door, the one that led from the kitchen to the backyard, being unlocked. My blood ran cold. How? I had changed that lock along with all the others. Reed filled the doorway, his face a thundercloud. Beth was right behind him, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. For a split second, my mind couldn't process it. Then I saw it. In Reed's hand was a key. Not one of my new keys. It was the old, original key to the back door, a spare that had been hidden under a loose flagstone by the back steps for emergencies. A key I had completely forgotten existed. You didn't really think a few new locks would keep us out of our own home, did you? Reed said, his voice low and menacing. He took a step inside, and I instinctively took a step back. This isn't your home, I said, my voice trembling but determined. You received the letter. You are trespassing. Trespassing? Beth laughed, a short, ugly sound. Don't be ridiculous, Mother. We live here. We came to get some of our things. And to talk some sense into you. She refused the terms. Of course she did. She wasn't here to negotiate or accept. She was here to reject, to cry, to blame. To dismantle the boundaries I had so carefully constructed. You can't just come in here unannounced, I insisted, my hand reaching for the phone on the counter. We're not unannounced, Reed sneered, taking another step into my kitchen. We're family. Or have you forgotten that? He was trying to intimidate me, using his physical presence to back me down. The conversation, if it could be called that, devolved quickly. Beth launched into a tirade, her voice rising with every sentence. It was a torrent of blame and accusation. I had embarrassed her. I had abandoned her. I had chosen a house over my own daughter, my own grandchild. She twisted my actions into a narrative of selfish cruelty, casting herself as the pregnant, homeless victim of a mentally unstable mother. She cried, but they were tears of rage, not of sadness. Reed, meanwhile, began to move through the house with a proprietary air. He went into the living room and started unplugging their television, their video game console. He wasn't packing, he was making a point. He was demonstrating that this was still his space, that he could do as he pleased. He slammed a cabinet door in the kitchen, making me jump. The sound echoed the slam of his car door, the pounding on my front door. It was the percussion of his anger. I tried to remain calm. I kept repeating the terms of the letter. We can schedule a time for you to pack. We can discuss the rental agreement. But you cannot be here like this. My words were meaningless to them. They were a buzzing insect to be swatted away. They were not listening. They were there to reassert their dominance. The breaking point came with a crash. Reed was in the kitchen now, yanking drawers open, looking for packing tape, he claimed. He was being deliberately rough, his movements jerky and violent. Beth was standing by the table, her face puffy from crying, watching him. On the center of the table sat my mother's blue and white striped mixing bowl, the one I had so carefully washed and reclaimed. It was a silent symbol of my newfound resolve. Reed slammed a drawer shut so hard the table shook. The blue bowl wobbled, teetered for a heart-stopping second on the edge, and then fell. It hit the tiled floor with a sickening, final crack. It didn't just break, it shattered. 100 blue and white shards skittered across the floor like scattered, broken teeth. Silence. The three of us stood frozen, staring at the destruction. The sound of the breaking bowl seemed to suck all the air out of the room. It was more than a bowl. It was my mother's hands, covered in flour. It was the smell of my own children's birthday cakes. It was 40 years of family history, of comfort, of love, lying in pieces at my feet. And they had broken it. Their anger, their carelessness, their bullish entitlement had destroyed something beautiful and irreplaceable. I looked at Beth. Her eyes were wide, a flicker of genuine shock in them. For a brief moment, I thought she would apologize, that this senseless act of destruction would finally break through her wall of rage. But then Reed spoke. "It was just a bowl," he said, shrugging. "It was old anyway. It was just a bowl." And in that moment, something inside me broke, too. But it wasn't the fragile, sentimental part. It was the last, frayed thread of hope that his relationship could be salvaged, that they could ever understand my perspective. I looked at the wreckage on the floor, and I didn't see broken ceramic. I saw my own life. I saw how they had treated me, as something old, something that could be carelessly used and easily broken, something that ultimately didn't matter. I grieved that bowl like a person. A hot, silent tear slid down my cheek, a final tear for the family I thought I had, for the daughter I thought I knew. Then, I turned and walked to the broom closet. I took out a dustpan and a brush. I didn't say a word. I knelt down on the hard tile floor, my old knees protesting, and I began to sweep up the shards. My movements were slow, deliberate. The rasp of the brush against the tile, the clink of the ceramic pieces as they went into the pan. Each sound was a meditation. With each piece I swept up, I felt the strangest, most profound sense of relief. Some things cannot be repaired. Some things have to break completely to make space for something new. That bowl was beautiful. It was full of memories. But it was also from the past. And as I swept up the last of the glittering blue and white dust, I knew that I was also sweeping away the last of my illusions. I stood up, holding the dustpan full of broken history. I looked at my daughter and her husband, who were now watching me with a mixture of confusion and unease. "You need to leave," I said. My voice was quiet, hollowed out, but it held a new, unbreakable core of iron. "Pack a bag with what you need for a few nights. We will schedule a time for you to get the rest. But you are leaving my house." Now there was no more discussion. There were no more options on the table. The time for negotiation was over. The bowl was broken. And so was the spell they had held over me for years. They had finally gone too far, and in doing so, they had set me free. Some things, once shattered, make space for you to finally, truly live. They left. To my surprise, there was no more argument. My voice, stripped of all emotion, held a finality that even they could not breach. They saw something in my eyes, I think, a line crossed, a door closed forever. They packed a few suitcases in sullen silence, the air thick with the unspoken. I stood by the front door and watched them go, my hand resting on the frame. I didn't help. I didn't offer a word of comfort. I was a statue, a silent sentinel guarding the border of my own life. When their car finally pulled out of the driveway, I closed the door, slid the deadbolt, and leaned my forehead against the cool wood, my body trembling with the aftershocks. The silence that followed their departure was different from the tense quiet of the past few days. It was deep. It was vast. It was kind. It was the silence of a house that could finally breathe again. The first few days were strange. I moved through the rooms as if in a dream, the echoes of their presence still clinging to the air. I saw the empty space where their television had been, the bare nursery, the dent in the carpet where Reed's favorite chair used to sit. Each void was a small shock, a reminder of the amputation that had taken place. There was grief, a sharp, painful grieving for the family I had lost, or perhaps, for the family I had never truly had. But alongside the grief, something else was growing, a profound sense of peace. I could sit in my reading chair for an hour without being interrupted. I could cook what I wanted for dinner without worrying about anyone else's preferences. I could play my classical music, the music Reed had always called funeral tunes, as loudly as I wanted. The house was slowly, day by day, becoming mine again in both fact and spirit. About a week after they left, I began the process of clearing out their things. We had arranged, through a series of terse text messages, for movers to come the following Saturday. Before then, I had to sort through what they'd left behind. It was a painful, archaeological dig through the ruins of our relationship. In the spare room, my old room, I packed baby clothes that had never been worn, toys still in their boxes. In their bedroom, I found piles of Reed's magazines, Beth's half-used makeup, a life abandoned in haste. I worked methodically, boxing up their possessions, taping them shut, labeling them in black marker. It was the opposite of nesting. It was an unnesting, a dismantling. With each box I sealed, I felt a little lighter. The day the movers came, I left the house. I gave them a key and went to May's for the afternoon. We sat in her garden, drank iced tea, and talked about roses and grandchildren, hers, who sent her postcards from their travels. She didn't ask about the movers. She didn't press. She just provided a safe harbor until the storm had passed. When I returned home, the rooms were empty. The house was mine. The silence was now complete, and at times, it felt overwhelming. I knew I couldn't live in this big, empty house alone. The quiet would curdle into loneliness if I wasn't careful. I needed life. I needed laughter. But I would not fill the space with obligation again. I would fill it with chosen community. I thought about what Anne, the lawyer, had said about a tenancy agreement. The idea had been born of necessity, but now it seemed like a possibility. I could rent out the spare room. The income would be a welcome supplement to my pension, and the presence of another person might be a comfort. But it would have to be the right person. I didn't put an ad online or a sign in the yard. Instead, I put a small, handwritten card on the bulletin board at the library, the same place where I'd found the legal clinic flyer. Room for rent in quiet, clean home, it read. Seeking mature, responsible female roommate. Non-smoker. Shared utilities. 2 days later, I got a call from a woman named Joyce. Her voice was warm and had a musical, lilting quality. "I saw your card at the library," she said. "I'm a retired teacher. My pension doesn't quite stretch to cover the rent hikes in my apartment building, and I'm looking for a softer place to land." A softer place to land. The phrase resonated with me. We arranged for her to come see the room the next day. Joyce was a tall, elegant woman with a cascade of silver hair and a laugh like church bells. She walked into my house, looked around at my books and my quilt, and smiled a genuine, radiant smile. "Oh, this feels like a home," she said. We talked for over an hour, sitting at the kitchen table where the blue bowl used to be. She told me about her 30 years teaching third graders, her love of bad mystery novels, and her 2 grown sons who lived on the other side of the country. I told her about my garden, my love of classical music, and, in a moment of unexpected candor, a little bit about why the room was suddenly available. She didn't pry. She just nodded with a deep, knowing sympathy. "Family is complicated," she said. "Sometimes the people you choose are more family than the ones you're given." Joyce moved in 2 weeks later. Her presence was a gentle ripple in the quiet pond of my life. We fell into an easy rhythm. We shared the cost of utilities and groceries. We took turns cooking, and I discovered she made an exquisite lasagna. We respected each other's privacy, but often chose to spend evenings together, reading in the living room or watching old movies. Her laughter filled the spaces that had for so long held only tension. The house felt warm again. One evening, Joyce and I were talking about May and Jean, and the incredible support they had shown me. "It's the sisterhood of the over 60s, Joyce said with a chuckle. "We've all seen a thing or two. We know when to bring a casserole and when to bring a lawyer." Her words sparked an idea. An idea born of May's fairy lights and Jean's pound cake and Joyce's lasagna. "What if we did that on purpose?" I said. "Did what?" "Brought casseroles. Or, shared them," I said, the idea taking shape as I spoke. "What if we started a potluck? A weekly dinner, right here. For women like us. Women who've been helpful all their lives and are finally ready to be helped." Joyce's eyes lit up. "Oh, Claire. That's a marvelous idea." And so, the Quiet Rooms, Honest Tables potluck was born. The first one was just the 4 of us, me, Joyce, May, and Jean. We sat around my dining room table, which now felt perfectly sized, and shared food and stories. The next week, May brought a friend from her water aerobics class, a recent divorcee. Jean brought a former colleague who is struggling with being the primary caregiver for her ailing husband. Week by week, Our circle grew. It became a weekly salon for women of a certain age, women who had raised children, buried husbands, navigated careers, and were now in the process of rediscovering themselves. We talked about everything: our frustrations, our joys, our fears for the future, our memories of the past. We shared recipes and legal advice, gardening tips and book recommendations. We created our own chosen family, a tapestry woven from shared experience and mutual respect. My house, once a battleground, had become a haven. The quiet rooms were now filled with the hum of conversation and the warmth of genuine connection. The honest table, where my mother's bowl had been shattered, was now a place where women could lay down their burdens, share their strength, and feast on the simple, profound nourishment of being seen and heard. I had locked my door to reclaim my home, but in doing so, I had opened it to a whole new world. Months melted into a peaceful rhythm, a gentle cadence of shared meals, quiet mornings, and the easy companionship of my new life. The seasons turned. The climbing rosebush on the porch, which had been a riot of pink in the summer, shed its leaves and stood in stark, elegant silhouette against the autumn sky. The shed at the end of the garden path, its fairy lights still glowing faithfully every evening, became a quiet place for me to sit and read on cool afternoons, a sanctuary reclaimed. I didn't hear from Beth for a long time. After the movers had cleared their things, the communication had ceased entirely. I knew, through a text from my niece Lynn, a surprisingly neutral one this time, that the baby had been born. A boy. They named him Caleb. A part of me ached with the primal longing of a grandmother to hold her grandchild, to breathe in that new baby scent. But another, wiser part of me knew that the price of admission to that child's life was still my own soul, and I was no longer willing to pay it. I sent a gift, a soft, hand-knitted blanket, via mail, with a simple card that said, "Wishing you all the best. Love, Mom." I received no acknowledgement. Then, one Saturday afternoon in late October, as Joyce and I were raking the last of the fallen leaves in the front yard, a familiar car pulled up to the curb. My heart did a familiar, nervous flip. It was Beth. She got out of the driver's seat and walked slowly up the path, holding a baby carrier. She looked different. Tired, yes, the way all new mothers are, with shadows under her eyes. But there was something else. The hard, defensive edge she had worn for so long seemed to have softened. She looked fragile. Joyce gave my arm a discreet squeeze and murmured, "I'll be inside if you need me," before disappearing into the house, giving us privacy. "Hello, Mom," Beth said, her voice quiet, uncertain. "Beth," I replied, my own voice steady. I didn't move toward her to hug her. I waited. "This is Caleb," she said, gesturing to the carrier. She shifted nervously from foot to foot. Can we come in for a minute?" I hesitated for only a second. "Of course." I led her into the living room. She looked around, her eyes taking in the subtle changes, a new vase on the mantel, a different throw pillow on the sofa. Joyce's presence was a quiet but palpable thing in the house, a testament to the new life I had built. Beth sat down on the couch, the one where she had once demanded I give up my home, and placed the baby carrier on the cushion beside her. She fumbled with the straps and lifted him out. He was beautiful, a tiny, perfect creature with a dusting of fine, dark hair. "He's beautiful, Beth," I said softly, and the words were true, untainted by the conflict that stood between us. She didn't offer for me to hold him, and I didn't ask. We sat in a strained silence for a few moments, the only sound the baby's soft breathing. Finally, she spoke, her eyes fixed on her son's face. "Things have been hard," she said. "Reed and I. We're in counseling." She took a shaky breath. "The counselor said I have to take responsibility for my part in things." She looked up at me then, her eyes swimming with unshed tears. "I'm sorry, Mom." The words were barely a whisper. "I'm sorry about everything. The shed. The things I said." She paused, and her gaze flickered toward the kitchen. "I'm sorry about the bowl." It wasn't a perfect apology. It was hesitant, qualified, prompted by a therapist. But it was a start. It was a crack in the wall of her denial. I simply nodded. The old me would have rushed in to comfort her, to say, "It's okay, it's all forgotten." But it wasn't okay, and it wasn't forgotten. Forgiveness wasn't a denial of the past, but an acceptance of it. "Thank you for saying that, Beth," I said. I accepted what was possible. I declined what was cruel. I would not offer absolution, but I could offer a fragile, tentative peace. We talked for a little while longer. She told me about the baby, about sleepless nights and the overwhelming reality of motherhood. She was no longer a daughter making demands, but a new mother, lost and overwhelmed, talking to her own mother. For the first time in years, it felt like we were having a real conversation. When it was time for her to go, I walked her to the door. It wasn't a visit to stay, not a visit to press me thin, not an attempt to reclaim lost territory. It was just a visit. A beginning. After she left, I stood on the porch, the late afternoon light turning the yard a soft, burnished gold. The air was crisp with the promise of winter. I reached up and touched the ribbon I now wore around my neck. On it, I carried a single one of the new brass keys to my front door. It wasn't a practical choice. I kept my main set in my purse, like anyone else. The key around my neck was a talisman, a reminder. I hadn't changed the locks to lock love out. I had changed them to keep myself in. To protect the woman who lived inside this house, to give her space to heal and grow. My love for my daughter was a complicated, wounded thing, but it was still there. Now, however, it coexisted with a fierce, powerful love for myself. The wind rustled the bare branches of the oak tree, and as it brushed past the shed at the bottom of the garden, the little building seemed to hum. It was a low, quiet sound, the sound of a place that had witnessed a great transformation. It was humming the new word that I had spent the last few months learning, the word that I had finally, truly earned. Home. I slept in my own bed that night, beneath my own roof. And for the first time, I knew with absolute certainty that no matter who came or went, no matter what storms might gather on the horizon, I would never be homeless again. I carried my home inside me now. The keys were just a reminder of the day I had finally learned how to unlock it.